Welcome to Folding Camper Fixes. We'll sort your snaps and mend your glitches. No fuss, no frills, just honest work. Yorkshire style with a cheeky smirk.
Well, there you go then. So this is everything that came with the installation kit. The only thing I'm not going to use is this plate. I'm going to use one which has a collar because I'm mounting it onto a wooden floor. That's a separate part, and I'll show you that when we come to cutting that into the floor. Well, these are all the bits to actually fit the diesel heater. The kit also came with a 10-litre tank, but again I'm not using that. What I'm going to do is use a jerry can that will sit underneath the camper with a fuel line fitted to that jerry can, so I can just take it to a petrol station, fill it with diesel, bring it back to the camper, plug it in underneath and use it that way. I didn't want to fit a permanent tank in the camper or in the front locker. But the kit does come with a 10-litre tank and you're more than welcome to use that. You just have to adapt your fitting to suit. One thing that I did order was, that I made sure, is this kit came with the white rigid fuel line. A lot of the kits on Amazon and eBay come with the green fuel line, which is really soft. And a lot of people on dedicated diesel heater forums have said you better upgrade into a kit that does have the more rigid line. When deciding where to put the diesel heater, be aware though that the main chassis bearing runs around this sort of area, so double make sure your measurements. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the centre of this using the 4 corners, drill a pilot hole through, and I can check that that my hole saw will line up and avoid the chassis before I actually start cutting. So I'm going to check all that, make sure it's right, and then start cutting the hole. So I've found my centre, so I'm going to drill a pilot hole straight through there, and then I can check on the underside that this is going to avoid the main chassis bearing. So that will be where my hole is. So as you can see, it's well away from the chassis bearing. It's not going to impact the drain plug for the water heater, and still gives us about 3 inch behind the heater for the air inlet against the wall. So I'm going to do this in 2 stages. I'm going to drill halfway from the top, halfway from the bottom, therefore I don't get any ragged edges, and then get back to you. So no turning back then. Measured 15 times, cut once, had a brew, measured another few times. Here we go. I'm going to go and finish cutting from the inside now, so that should at least give me a clean cut on the inside and the outside. So that's oil cut, or the hole cut. Yep. As my nan would always used to say, put wood in oil. I don't think that wood's going to go back in that oil. So let's see whether the plate fits. Yeah. So that's the plating. It's nice and solid down, and give this all a clean. Square it up so that we square to the laminate, which means the thing will be square. So we'll square it all up, and then that can be fixed down in place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use a Stanley knife and cut all around this to get rid of the lino, just so that this is mounted to the wood, not to the lino. Okay, so that's now the plate all fitted. The only change is I just used some wood screws, because the screws that came with the kit were long ones for mounting to a steel drilling and tapping a steel chassis. So all I've done is took the washers off and use wood screws to screw it down, and cycloflexed it all underneath it just to make sure it's bonded to the to the wooden floor. Cut into the laminate so it's now flush with the laminate. And this is it from the underside. So what I'm going to do is give that a quick run around with some sandpaper, and then seal it with some Cycloflex all around, just to stop any water ingress between this and the timber. It is a very tight fit. 127mm hole saw is more or less bang on the diameter of this particular model, so it is a very tight fit all around, but I just want to belt and braces, just run a bead of Cycloflex around it. But good, get on to mounting the diesel heater, and then we can start looking at mounting all the fuel and the exhaust. So job now, going to clamp the heater to the plate using the holes in the plate. So I'm going to go underneath the camper and bolt it down. Hey up all, so today's plan is to get this diesel tank fitted for the diesel heater. So the plan this morning is to fit it roughly there. I'm going to cut a hole out in the bottom so we can unscrew, so if I need to drain the whole system down, I can unscrew the diesel feed there and I don't end up having diesel dumped inside the front locker. But to make this job easier, I think the first thing I'm going to do is take this door off, just a case of unscrewing those hinges. So the plan is, this is a removable filter, and also it gives me a chance to drain the tank down. So the idea is I'm going to use a hole saw to cut that out the floor where the tank is. That means I can go under the camper, unscrew that, obviously with a tray underneath it, drain down all the diesel, and empty the tank or replace the filter. That's the hole cut through. Give it a hoover and clean up. I did same as the other hole, I drilled a bit through from the bottom and then through from the top, so we didn't get a big rip out at the bottom. The plan is now to have the tank filler all in the middle of that hole, and screw on. I might make some cowling or something to go around that, just to stop any would-be intruders. The solution would be to trim that off so the bottom of the tank is flush. That might be the better option. Okay, so now electrics are done, it's onto the fuel line. So from an earlier video, I've got the tank fitted to the front of the camper. So I need to get fuel from there back to there. Now the kit does come with white plastic, and I'll cover how you use that, but I've decided I'm going to use this diesel line. It's fuel injection line. I'll just see if I can find the markings. There you go. Okay, it's just less joint. I've asked people on the forum, there seems to be mixed feelings, but most people, you know, I've seen people install it with this without any issue. The kit did come with an inline filter, but as my tank's already got a filter built in, I'm not going to fit that. It's an extra joint that I don't need. I am though going to, just after the tank, put a non-return valve. It's the standard non-return fuel valve. Stop anything. I shouldn't think it will back siphon, but I am wondering whether to put a fuel valve on. I may or may not fit that. I'm not sure yet. It's going to be clipped to the underside of the camper with these plastic C-clips, and then when I'm making a connection, I'm going to use these clips. Now you join me under the camper, so there's a non-return valve. As you see, it clipped all the way back, and then I don't know if you can see right there, it goes up into the pump. The problem now is, you see, the tank outlet is there, and I need to run a fuel line to here, but I don't want to run a fuel line anywhere in here or in here, because that moves, obviously that moves backwards and forwards as you screw the legs down. So one option is, once there's already a hole there, is do I clamp that switch, that fuel switch there, and then run a line to the non-return valve there. Then obviously from there I can go in front and into the tank, going clip along here, and I think that's going to be the better route. It keeps the line away from this leg. Okay, join me back under the camper. Had a bit of a rethink. So, I'm taking the fuel line, sorry, focus. Taking the fuel line out there, run it along in line with that chassis member, and taking it this side of the thing into the non-return valve and off. My apologies for this next section. I actually don't know what happened to the video footage of installing the fuel pump, so I'll just do a voiceover and talk you through it. So as you can see from the image, this is the fuel pump in place. All I did was I created a L bracket out of 3mm by 20mm steel bar to hang the fuel pump down. You will see the pump's at an angle, and this is from the installation instructions from the diesel heater kit. It is important that the pump is fitted in the right direction. There is a flow arrow on it showing you the direction, and it is tilted in and orientated as per the diesel heater instructions. But all we have then is we have the fuel line, short fuel line going up. There's a fuel in port on the diesel heater. Simply clamp the fuel hose onto there, and then the other side goes off to what you've previously seen off towards the front of the camper where the non-return valve is and the tank. Another point to make from this picture, you can see at this point I had cut down the turret, which used to stick out 60mm. I've cut it down to a height of 30mm. So this is why in the description I've included the code to order the 30mm one, so you don't have to cut it down. The 60mm one meant that there wasn't enough fall for the exhaust, but I'll cover all that in the exhaust section. In this video clip you can see the fuel line from the non-return valve running along the chassis member through the chassis. There is tiny little holes to pass the line through. It goes behind the wheel, across the wheel arch, and then into the pump. I didn't get a chance to film a lot of this because there was a lot of tweaking, bending, and retweaking the pipe to get it to how I wanted it. So what I am going to do is include a series of photographs and talk through each one of why I didn't choose that way of installing the exhaust, and in the end show you how I actually decided to go ahead and fit the exhaust on the camper. So the exhaust comes in three parts. You have the exhaust pipe, which is a flexible metal tube. You have the back box or silencer, and you have an exhaust bracket. I did end up making my own bracket to go along with the exhaust bracket because I felt like it needed an extra support rather than just the one that's included in the kit. So installation 1, as you can see, this doesn't have a constant fall. It uses the supply bracket, which doesn't allow the back box to fall enough, and would cause a valley in the gas pipe, which is not recommended by the instructions, as you get condensate gathering in that well and corroding the pipe from within. So this one was abandoned. This next picture has a nice fall on the overall length of the exhaust, but the back box then hangs incredibly low. In fact, it was hanging lower at this point than the motor mover on the camper. This method would be great, it would be above the chassis, but as you can see, it would be venting the gases underneath the camper, which is not allowed in the UK. It must go to the side. So in order to raise up the exhaust and still have a fall, I came to this solution, and this, as you can see, is where I decided the turret was way too long and decided to cut it down to 30mm. Again, this is why I've put in the description the actual 30mm turret, not the 60mm. So this is looking good. There's a fall, and the exhaust is exhausting outside the side of the camper. The only problem with this one was the included bracket was way too short, which would mean I'd have to make 2 of my own brackets, and I still felt it was a little bit low and wanted it a little bit tighter against the floor of the camper. So this is the final solution I came up with. This is only dry fitted because I am then going to test the diesel heater. There is still a fall on it. I know it doesn't look much, but there is still a fall from the heater all the way through to the back box. The way I accomplished this is I actually cut off quite a bit of off the end of the exhaust flexible exhaust pipe, just so I could get that 90-degree bend higher up. That first bracket is the included bracket with the kit. And then to drop the silencer a bit lower than what I could do with the enclosed bracket, I just made an L bracket out of 2mm by 20mm flat bar, and used that to hold the silencer or the back box in place. So now we need to look at power. So what I'm going to do is, I've got an inline fuse here which protects the motor mover, but I can run another cable off that because that runs to an isolation switch, so I can isolate the diesel heater directly to the battery through a protection fuse. The idea is ideally I'd love to send 2 more cables down this, which goes to a box in the middle and then distributed to each of the motor movers, but there's not enough capacity to get two more of the thick cables down. So what I'm going to do is put another one of these here, straight under, clipped all the way across, back up to the motor mover, back up to the heater. Okay, just prepared my pipe. I've just put a draw wire through it just so I can draw the cables once I've got it in the camper. So that's the pipe through the floor. Still got my draw wire to put the cables through. That's going to go into that. I ended up just rerouting this one round that way and just kept that one out of the way of this one, because I couldn't put the hole there because this pipe goes that way. I didn't want to obviously pierce that, so just a little reshuffle of this cable around the back there and back into the motor mover. Doesn't really matter because these cables are exactly the same length, so rerouting them doesn't cause any issues because they are all cut to the exact same length. So getting ready to pull the cable through. I'm using green for negative because I can't find my black cable of this gauge, so I'm going to use green. If I decide to change it, I can just pull this one through and replace it with a black cable, but I just can't find where my black cable. I've got black cable of a lesser gauge, but obviously I want to keep the same gauge, so I'm going to use green for now, for negative. So on the electrics, I decided not to go with those thin cables. I think it's not clear in the instructions, but it can draw up to like 5 to 7 amps when it's running the glow plugs. So I decided to go for some thicker automotive cable. Now this is rated at like 25 amp. In fact, I think it's a little bit higher than 25 amp. So plenty for the diesel heater. And I just drew that through using the wires that I'd already pulled through the other day. So they go into there. I do need to put some mastic around here like I've done that one, and I'm going to do that on the outside. I just wanted to get everything in first before I then start sealing things up. So the negative runs off up through the battery box grommet. That goes off and connects straight to the battery, just using an on-pin multi battery connector. So that's the negative. The positive comes through, and it did come with a fuse, but I just wanted to have something fixed to the floor, so I got an inline fuse holder, same as the one that came with the motor mover, and inside there, just clip it open. I put a 20 amp fuse, which is the same as what came with the kit. Obviously the cable is a higher rating than the fuse, so the fuse should blow before that wire even starts to get too hot and melt. You know, don't ever have a fuse that's higher than your cable rating. and then that goes off to the battery isolator, which activates this and the motor mover. But the motor mover, it's energized, but nothing's going to the motors, and it won't come on unless I switch it on with the remote. So there'll be a bit of power going to the box, but that also shuts itself down after 10 minutes being inactive. So I won't be using the diesel heater and the motor mover to move the camper at the same time, but it was easier just to have it isolated using the same isolation switch. So yeah, then this is going under the camper, and excuse all the mess on the floor, under the camper, then comes up through the same little slot where the power cable to the pump goes, and then I've just hung it all up on the back there, the excess, and I'm going to fix that down with a C-clip just to stop it moving around. So just if anybody wants to know, these are what I'm going to be using to clip this pipe to the underside of the camper rather than just leave it dangling. Just clip the right size and a little wood screw, and just like that holds these nice and firm. So that's now the control panel mounted. I've done it so you can barely see the cables. It's a shame that they didn't do those coming out sort of in the middle so you didn't see them at all, but you know, rather than try and take it apart, I'm just happy to just put them there. Now what I'm going to do for my cables is, obviously it's not long enough, but I'm going to run it along the back of the cupboard, down and across the top here, into this connector. There's not enough cable that comes with it, so what I've done is I've just used those waterproof solder joints to extend the cable, just using some multi-core copper cable I had lying around. So I've extended it so that now, as you can see, I've got plenty long enough, probably more than I need, but I'll just loop it all together there and clip it to the back of the cupboard. So I'll do a video once it's in, showing you just how I've sort of clipped it to the side wall to neaten it up and stop it getting in the way of anything in that cupboard. I may also put some electrical tape around these three cables just to hold them together, rather than them being like all sort of. Hey up folks, so just back at you. Sorry I didn't film this, but phone died, so I had to didn't notice while recording. Anyway, so heater pipe from the heater through to the main cabins in. What you'll need to cut the hole for this, that just pops off. And as you can see, it's just a collar held in by 3 screws. That needs a 75mm hole saw. That's what I use to cut that out. That's a nice snug fit. Now, you don't have to force it, it's just a really nice snug fit. So 75mm hole saw straight through there. I cut from the front just so there wasn't no ripping of the front facing laminate. And then it comes with 2 large 75mm clamps. So cut your trunking down to size. This just cut easily with just a Stanley knife. It's only very thin. And then yeah, clamp it all up. Clamp it to the in a ring of that, and you're done. You can just clip. He says easily. There you go. Just clip that on, and obviously you can turn that to direct if you want the heat, but I'll just leave it going angled to the floor. So yeah, that was the final part of the installation. Now, time for final fit of exhaust. So I've got some exhaust seal. The instructions don't actually say you need to use it, but I've got it, so I'm going to put a little bit on just to make sure we get a good seal. And then it's a case of clamp at that end, and those are to tighten it onto the exhaust there, and then to the back box, the silencer there. Okay, and then I've got the middle hanger there. Like I said when I started this, I dry fitted all this, tested it to make sure it was all working fine. So now I'm just actually going to get the exhaust fitted permanently. So I've liberally applied some sealer to the end of there and onto there, and now I'm going to fit this back, so I'll catch you once I've pushed it back home. Okay, so that's the exhaust now clamped in place. So I've got a clamp on there with the sealer, tightened up my bracket there, and then clamped on with the sealer there. Okay, and the exhaust is now solid. Okay, I don't know if I covered it. I may have, but these are just brackets I made just by bending some bar steel just so I could get the right drop, because that's the bracket that came with the kit for the silencer, but it wasn't long enough to create the drop, so I just made my own bracket a little bit longer. It is rusting already though. We live near the coast, so I might have to just put some Rust-Oleum on all that just to stop it any further. Okay, so next job now is the fuel line is already secured in place. Probably can't see it. I'll just get the camera to focus. Fuel line's already clipped on, so now it's just a question of adding the air filter, and I'm just going to tie wrap these cables just together just to keep them out of the way. And all I'm going to do with the air intake is take it straight out here and just have the air filter about here. So the air intake, these are the parts. I've already cut down this pipe, just easy enough with a Stanley knife. It's only very thin, like paper. I've got a bracket there. I did buy the wrong bracket. This was too wide, so I've just bent it there. If I get a chance, I'll drill another hole there and cut that off, but just to get it fitted today, I'm just going to put that bracket on. And there's the air cleaner, air filter, sorry, and that just screws onto the end of the pipe. So that's it, clamped onto the underside of the camper. It's getting quite tight under there, but you can still get a clamp on. And all I'm going to do is just going to bend round there, and I'm going to clamp clamp it. Not going to put a bracket on there because it's just going to be held in place by the air filter. Okay, so that's the air filter now in. Just round that rubber band, screwed in place. That's going to hold the air intake, which is going straight into the thing. Okay, and if I do need to change it, I can just unscrew it off there and put another one on. Put some tie wraps around those cables just to hold them together. Just need to trim those off. But that is it. That is the outside installation done. So go inside and fire it up. System is now up and running. Got it on power level 5 at the moment, so half power. The sound, I would say, is quieter than an average sort of house boiler flue. Probably sounds louder on the phone because I'm right near it. But yeah, it's about the half sound of a average combi boiler flue. And when you're in the camper, you can barely hear the exhaust. So inside the camper, nice warm air coming out there. So 21 degrees in here. It's been running for about 10 minutes. Got it from 18 degrees to 21 degrees. There's a remote, which has gone to sleep. Just 1 second. There we go. I need to set the clock and stuff yet, but I'm gonna do a full section in this video on the remote and its functions.
Welcome to Folding Camper Fixes. We'll sort your snaps and mend your glitches. No fuss, no frills, just honest work. Yorkshire style with a cheeky smirk.
Well, there you go then.